I was giving birth, and he was with another woman giving birth. The silver cage locked my stomach, locked away my pain. "Wait for her husband," Ethan said coldly. I told him I wasn't fighting, I wasn't grabbing, I just wanted help for myself and my child. But he severed my emotional connection, until his new favorite successfully gave birth. His assistant trembled as he told him, "Luna and the child are both gone." In that instant, he finally went mad.
Welcome to Luna's Romance Stories. Read the entire novel in one go. Message or comment to tell me what kind of story you'd like to read. Subscribe to the channel for daily updates. Luna reminds you, the story begins now.
I was 8 months pregnant, and on the verge of giving birth. But my alpha mate, Ethan, had locked me in a silver cage in the basement to delay my labor. When I cried out for help, he simply told me to wait. He did this because his late brother's mate, Isabella, was also due to give birth that day. The pack oracle had prophesied that only the firstborn pup would receive the moon goddess's blessing and become the future pack leader. "This title belongs to Isabella's child," he said. "She lost Liam. She has nothing left. Serafina, you already possess all my love. That silver cage will ensure you deliver after she does." The contractions were agonizing. I begged him to take me to the clinic. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. "Stop pretending. I should have known you never loved me. You only care about wealth and status, forcing yourself into early labor just to steal my nephew's birthright. You are truly vicious." Pale and trembling, I whispered, "The pup is coming. I can't stop it. Please, I'll swear a blood oath. I don't care about the inheritance." "I only love you," he scoffed. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have forced Isabella to sign that contract giving up her pup's inheritance rights. I'll come back for you after she gives birth, after all. That is my pup too." He stood guard outside Isabella's delivery room. He didn't remember me until he saw her holding her newborn pup in her arms. He ordered his deputy to release me, but the deputy's voice trembled. "Luna and the pup, they are both dead." In that moment, Ethan completely lost control. I dragged my exhausted body toward the bars of the silver cage. The gate slammed shut, and the heavy silver bars crashed down onto my fingers. I heard the sickening sound of bones crushing. A fresh wave of agony combined with the pain of contractions ripped a scream from my throat. But Ethan was entirely focused on Isabella, turning a deaf ear to my cries. I felt a warm gush of fluid between my legs. My water had broken. Panic seized me immediately, forcing myself to calm down. I tried to reach out for help via the mind. Link, but Ethan. He had severed my mental connection to the rest of the pack. The pup in my belly kicked incessantly, as if trying to break free from its confinement. I was soaked through, likely a mix of sweat and blood. I could feel my wolf, my very essence, being sealed away by the silver poison. Using the last of my strength, I shouted aloud, clinging to a final shred of hope. Finally, I heard footsteps outside. "Please help me," I cried. "I am locked in the silver cage. I am going into labor." I repeated it over and over, thinking I was saved. But then I heard a voice, dripping with smugness. My, Serafina, look at you now. Ethan should have taught you a lesson long ago." It was Ethan's sister, Chloe. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to keep my voice steady. "Chloe, please, get me out of here. The baby is coming. I can't wait." Chloe opened the basement door and stared at me. For a split second, I thought she might help. Then she kicked the cage. The violent clang echoed in the cramped room. Her voice was sharp, like shattered glass. "Get you out, just so you can disrupt Isabella's delivery. Ethan sent me to watch you because he knew you'd pull something like this. Serafina, spare Ethan the trouble. He is busy enough without you adding to his burden. The heir to this pack will be Isabella's child. Don't think your little tricks can change that." Another violent contraction made me scream. Tears streaming down my face, I gasped. "My baby doesn't care about an alpha title. I don't want a penny. Just tell Ethan to let me go, and I swear I will disappear from your lives forever." My screaming seemed to annoy her. She frowned and whispered, "Bife number CH. Who exactly are you trying to call with all that screaming? You disgust me." Then she opened a mind. Link connection with Ethan. The silver toxicity and the searing pain were dragging me toward the abyss. "Yes, Ethan, don't worry. I am watching her," she said. Hope ignited in my heart when I sensed Ethan's presence through the mate bond. I screamed with everything I had left. "Ethan, the pup is coming. Hurry, please. Tell Chloe to take me to the clinic. Hurry!" I was wailing, completely unable to control myself. Chloe hesitated. I heard her whisper into the link, "Ethan, I think she might actually be in labor. It doesn't sound like she is faking it. Maybe I should take her to the clinic. After all, she is carrying your only pup if something happens." Ethan paused for a few seconds, seemingly considering it. Then his tone softened. "Fine, take her." But just then, a gentle voice came from his end. "Ethan, darling, I crave some moonflower nectar. The healer says I need extra lunar energy to have the strength to go on." "Oh, is Serafina in labor? Don't worry, it doesn't hurt at all. I barely feel a thing. Look, I could stand up and dance for you right now. Serafina is pure, blooded. She'll be absolutely fine." Of course, she felt no pain. The entire medical team had relocated to her private state of the art delivery suite. She was being pampered in every conceivable way. One sentence from Isabella was all it took. Ethan's voice turned as cold and hard as steel. What could possibly go wrong? She is a master manipulator. She would never let herself get into any real trouble. She is just screaming to trick you into letting her out. Don't fall for it. The mind link abruptly disconnected. Furious after being scolded by Ethan, Chloe turned her rage on me. She pulled out a pure silver dagger and walked toward the cage. "This is all your fault. Let's see how you like the taste of real silver." In the next second, the cold silver blade sliced a deep gash into my arm. I let out a blood-curdling scream, a roar of pure agony. The silver poison began to sear through my veins. I could barely breathe. I tried to stay calm, one hand clutching my belly, the other pressing on the wound. But the silver completely neutralized my healing abilities. The blood wouldn't stop. I curled into a ball, terrified to move. I lay helpless on the cold floor, silent tears tracking through the grime on my face. My stomach felt like it was being bitten by 1,000 vipers. Consciousness began to slip away as I lay there, the silver wound on my arm turning black and still bleeding. I lost consciousness briefly. In the fog, I could almost feel death's cold fingers beckoning me closer. Just when I thought it was all over, Chloe reappeared. When she saw the blood on the dagger, her face went instantly pale. She started banging on the cage, but I had no strength to respond. She seemed to panic, fumbling with the keys to open the door. It was dark in the basement. She had to grab my hair and yank my head up to see my face. Suddenly, she scoffed and slammed my head back onto the floor. "You pathetic wretch. My silver dagger must have scared the soul right out of you. Why aren't you screaming now? Keep acting." Her eyes were filled with disgust. "You stopped screaming because you realized Ethan wouldn't let you out. You are so selfish. You only do what benefits you." She toyed with the silver dagger, her expression turning sinister. I forced myself to look up, a wave of nauseating fear churning in my stomach. The pure silver part of her dagger, having been corroded by the power of the wolf blood within me, had turned black where it touched me. Before I could open my mouth to explain, Chloe exploded, kicking me hard in the stomach. "Serafina, are you crazy? How dare you taint my silver blade with your dark magic? It is worth more than your pathetic life. If you've ruined my blade, I'll make Ethan sever your mate bond. You think you can give birth to your pup before Isabella? Dream on. Only Isabella's child is worthy of the moon goddess's blessing, destined to be our pack's future leader." "You malicious bife number cheese," she stormed out in a rage. But before leaving, She scattered silver dust around the cage. The silver poison made my entire body tremble uncontrollably. Through the haze, I swore I heard my pup crying. Deep in the darkness of my mind, a faint voice called out, "Mama," begging me to save it. I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I was supposed to meet my baby today, to hold him or her in my arms. I was so close. Why was fate so cruel to me and my child? I let out a low growl. Helplessness pierced my heart. The hope of rescue was slim to none. Enduring the pain, I caressed my stomach and spoke to the baby. I prayed that if there was a next life, it would be born into a pack where the father loved the mother. Then it would be happy. My breathing grew shallow, the blood in my veins, feeling as if it were congealing. Suddenly, the cage door swung open and the lights flickered. The wolf standing there was startled to see me lying in a pool of blood. I used the last of my strength to inch forward, whispering, "Save me." His voice trembled with fear. "Who are you? What did you do to deserve such punishment from the Alpha?" He was cautious. "I am Ethan's mate," I rasped. With bloody fingers, I struggled to pull down the collar of my dress, revealing the mating mark on my neck. It was smeared with blood, almost unrecognizable. It was his mark. He recognized the mating mark and stepped forward to help. But then he hesitated and sent a mind, linked to Ethan. "Captain Ethan, I am in the basement. I found the Luna. She is covered in blood. Should I take her to the clinic immediately?" Ethan's reply was filled with confusion. "Blood, you are mistaken. That is not blood. Those are stains from Seraphina's forbidden magic. It contaminated the whole basement. No wonder Chloe was so angry." His voice hardened. "Do not take her to the clinic. She is fine. She just wants to birth the pup first and is pulling tricks again." "Stay out of it. I'll get her myself," the wolf tried to explain. But Ethan cut the link. He looked at me with pity, then walked past me to move some supplies. Just when I thought he was leaving me, he came back. He seemed to be battling with himself. "You are pregnant," he said firmly. "I can't just let you die. My mate is pregnant too. I can't risk bringing a curse upon my child." He dragged me out of the silver cage and carried me toward the pack's main infirmary. I finally let out a sigh of relief. I was saved. But when we arrived at the infirmary, there were no herbs, no instruments, nothing to help me deliver. Concerned for Isabella's safety, Ethan had transferred all resources to her private clinic. My condition was critical. The healer, seeing how close I was to death, knew he had to get me to a proper medical facility. Anxiously, he mind-linked Ethan. "Alpha Ethan, it is an emergency. Please come to the private clinic. The Luna is in terrible condition. There is a risk of silver poisoning spreading." Ethan's voice boomed with annoyance. "Seraphina, you are far more resourceful than I gave you credit for. You actually escaped and found someone to help. I am telling you, no matter what tricks you pull, I am not coming. I know your body better than you do. You aren't in any danger. I told you. That is my pup too. You come after Isabella. Why are you in such a rush?" The healer looked at me with deep compassion, then turned to a nurse. "Send her to the private clinic. We have to try. I never dreamed they would send me to the same clinic as Isabella." The healer pleaded with the staff, but Ethan had already issued orders. Not a single herb was to be spared for me. Through the wall, I heard Ethan's cold, heartless words. "I don't care who it is for. I won't risk Isabella's life. This must be foolproof." I collapsed to the floor in despair. Just then, my eyes met those of a man at the door. It was Ethan's beta, Mason. His eyes went wide with shock when he saw me, but he seemed hesitant. He ran quickly to Ethan's side. "Alpha, there is a female wolf outside, covered in blood. She looks like the Luna." Ethan frowned, rubbing his fingers together. "Impossible," he stated affirmatively. "She is too heavily pregnant to walk here." The beta whispered again. "Alpha, perhaps you should verify. If it is truly her, she and the pup are in grave danger." Ethan glared at him viciously. I said, "It is impossible." If it were her, she wouldn't be silent. She would have stormed in demanding her inheritance long ago. Besides, a gold digger like her is too vain. She would never let herself be covered in blood. The healer was still arguing, trying to get a medical kit. Ethan threatened him with his position, silencing him. The healer returned to me, his face full of apology. There was nothing more he could do. I tried to tell them not to worry, but my vision began to blur. The silver poison and blood loss were making me faint. I could hear the whispers of the medical staff fading away. Silver poisoning too severe. The pup's heartbeat is getting weaker. Quick, get the emergency kit now. I tried to open my mouth to ask, to scream, but my throat couldn't make a sound. I could only watch helplessly as their frantic, blurry figures moved around me. My hand fell limply onto my flat, empty abdomen. Tears blurred my vision. "I am sorry," my heart cried. "My baby, I am sorry. Mommy couldn't protect you." A single tear slid from the corner of my eye. Then darkness swallowed me whole. Ethan's perspective, Ethan waited anxiously outside the operating room. As soon as the door opened, his first thought was of Isabella. He rushed to her bedside and picked up the newborn pup, his eyes filled with joy. "He looks just like you," he whispered. "So beautiful." Then he paused, a strange thought surfacing in his mind. He wondered who Serafina's child would look like. If it were a girl, she might look more like her mother. She would be even more beautiful. After rocking the pup to sleep, Ethan turned to leave. A whole day had passed. It was time to take Serafina to the clinic. Just then, his beta, Mason, appeared. Ethan tossed him the keys. "Go back to the manor, get the Luna out of the basement, and take her to the clinic." Mason didn't look up. He stood there rigid, trembling with a fear Ethan couldn't comprehend. Ethan's patience was running thin when Mason finally spoke, his voice shaking. "The Luna and the pup, they are dead." Ethan's perspective, Ethan's pupils constricted to pinpoints, his breathing becoming rapid as if he'd been shot with a silver bullet. He staggered back a step, but his alpha instincts kicked in instantly, forcing him to stand his ground. "Impossible. She was stable when I left. She can't be dead," he roared. "This must be another one of her tricks to get my attention. Didn't I tell you not to fall for it?" His deputy trembled under the weight of the Alpha's fury, his voice quavering. "Alpha, the Luna's body is outside the silver cage. We've done a DNA test. It is her. It really is the Luna." A primal roar of terror rose in Ethan's chest. Panic flooded his eyes. The kind of soul-deep terror that only comes from losing a mate. He snatched the keys from Mason and bolted. To the dungeon now. The beta didn't dare hesitate, sprinting to keep up with the Alpha. Ethan slammed on the gas, his werewolf instincts allowing him to accelerate instantly. The dangerous speed felt effortless. The engine roared like a wounded beast as Ethan drove the black Maybach wildly along the winding mountain road leading to the manor. The needle on the speedometer was in the red, but he was oblivious, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He gritted through his teeth, sounding like he was cursing or perhaps hypnotizing himself. "Serafina, if you dare fake death to gain my sympathy, I swear I will make you regret it for the rest of your life." Despite his words, a chill originating from the depths of his soul climbed up his spine. Although he had unilaterally blocked the werewolf-mate bond, right now, the place that should have connected to the other half of his soul was a dead silence. No anger, no sorrow, just a heart-stopping void. The car screeched to a halt at the manor gates, tires leaving long skid marks. Before the car even stopped completely, Ethan kicked the door open and rushed out. "Alpha!" The guard at the gate trembled, seeing his murderous expression. "Move." Ethan shoved the guard aside and headed straight for the basement. Since Mason said she was found outside the cage, he would go to that damned cage and see. He would expose this woman's lie with his own eyes. She must be waiting there, a mocking smile on her lips that he despised, telling him this was all just to make him suffer. The stairs to the basement were dark and damp, but as Ethan descended step by step, a thick, nauseating smell of blood hit him. This wasn't the metallic tang of a fresh wound. This was the smell of death, stale, cold, and bitter with rust. His steps faltered, his heart contracting violently. The iron door to the basement was wide open. The dim bulb still flickered, illuminating the silver cage. "Serafina, come out!" he roared, his voice echoing in the empty room, carrying an imperceptible tremor. No one answered. He walked into the cage area, and the scene before him froze him in place. There was blood everywhere, not a few drops, nor a small puddle, but a shocking expanse of dark red, soaking almost every inch of the concrete floor around the cage. In that pool of blood, now dried and black, lay scattered strands of long hair matted with sweat, and Ethan's gaze fell on the bars of the cage. There were black scorch marks, the residue of werewolf flesh burning upon contact with pure silver. Number. He subconsciously took a half step back, stepping on something. It was the pure silver dagger, trembling. He picked up the dagger. The blade was covered in black blood. It was Chloe's dagger. What she said was true, Ethan muttered, Serafina's earlier pleas for help suddenly echoing in his mind. "Chloe, please, the baby is coming. Ethan, help me. I am really bleeding." What had he done then? He had mocked her, cut the mind link, and told her to stop faking. "Alpha," Mason's weak voice came from behind. Ethan spun around, eyes bloodshot, grabbing Mason by the collar and slamming him against the wall. "Where is she? Don't tell me she is dead. Tell me you hid her. Tell me this is just a sick prank." Tears streamed down Mason's face. He had never seen the Alpha so out of control. Shaking, he pointed out the door. In the clinic morgue," the doctor said. When she arrived, there were no vital signs. Massive blood loss, plus silver poisoning. Total organ failure. Ethan felt like he had been slapped hard, his ears ringing. He released Mason and stumbled out of the basement. It wasn't true. As long as he didn't see the body, it wasn't true. The corridors of the packed clinic smelled of disinfectant. But today, it was unusually quiet. All the doctors and nurses lowered their heads in fear as Ethan approached, daring not to look him in the eye. It was fear of a tyrant, and a silent condemnation of the heartless. Ethan rushed to the room at the end of the hall. It was a place he had passed countless times, but never thought he would enter for Serafina. The moment he pushed the door open, a chill hit him. On the iron bed in the center of the room lay a figure covered by a white sheet. The silhouette beneath was shockingly thin. Ethan's legs felt like lead. He moved forward step by step, each one feeling like walking on knife points. He reached out, his fingers trembling so much he could barely grip the thin fabric. "Serafina," he called softly, his tone incredibly gentle. "Stop playing. I am here to take you home. Isabella has given birth, you are second, but I will give you the best care. Okay, wake up." No response. He yanked back the white sheet. In that instant, Ethan felt his world collapse. The woman lying there was pale as paper, her once rosy lips now a deathly gray purple. Her eyes were tightly closed, her face stained with dried tears and dirt. But what broke him was her body. There was a deep gash on her arm, exposing the bone. The skin around the wound was a terrifying charred black, the mark of pure silver corrosion, and her lower body, the once white maternity dress, was dyed a deep brown by blood. Her belly, it was flat. The baby. Ethan's voice was hoarse and broken. "Where is my child?" A doctor nearby stepped forward fearfully, holding a tiny, wrapped bundle. The doctor's eyes were red, his voice choked with emotion. "Alpha, it was a boy. He was stuck in the womb too long, and with the mother's silver poisoning, when he was born he was already." The doctor didn't dare finish, simply lifting a corner of the blanket gently. It was a tiny baby boy, not fully developed, his skin blue, but he had a nose identical to Ethan's and sparse hair that should have been black. He was the firstborn. If the delivery had been normal, He would have been born hours before Isabella's child. The pack oracle had prophesied that only the firstborn pup would receive the moon goddess's blessing and become the future pack leader. That prophecy hit Ethan's skull like a sledgehammer. For a so-called heir title to make way for Isabella's child, he had personally killed his true firstborn son, his true heir. Ahaha! Ethan suddenly erupted in a wretched howl, a sound not human, but like a lone wolf mortally wounded. He dropped to his knees beside the bed, his shaking hands reaching out to touch Serafina's cold cheek. Serafina, wake up! Open your eyes and curse me. You wanted money, didn't you? I'll give it to you. I'll give you as much as you want. You wanted the title. The Luna position is yours. No one can take it away. He frantically pushed his alpha energy into her, trying to wake her. Golden light flickered in his palm, pouring madly into Serafina's body. Take it, damn it, take it, he roared, tears finally bursting forth. However, the body was like a broken vessel. All the energy dissipated into the air. The mate bond was completely severed, offering no response. It is no use, Alpha. The doctor wept, trying to stop him. The Luna is gone. In her final moments to protect the child, she exhausted all her life force. Her wolf spirit has dissipated. Shut up, she is not dead. Ethan turned, glaring at the doctor with blood-red eyes. Who locked her in there? Who refused her treatment? The doctor stepped back in fear, shouting in grief and indignation. It was you, Alpha. An hour ago, you gave the order yourself. You said she was acting. You said Isabella was more important. You transferred all medical resources away, not leaving her even a single hemostat. Ethan froze. Memories flooded back like a tidal wave. Stop pretending. I should have known you never loved me. No matter what tricks you pull, I am not coming. I don't care who it is for. I won't risk Isabella's life. Every word, every sentence now turned into the sharpest silver blade, slicing his heart piece by piece. He looked down at his own long, powerful hands. These same hands had just held Isabella's child, celebrating a new life. And in this moment, these hands were stained with the blood of his beloved mate and his own flesh and blood. Though invisible, he could feel the scalding sin. Serafina. He buried his face in her cold palm, the hand with the finger bones crushed by the silver bars, twisted and deformed. In that moment, in this room filled with the scent of death, the high and mighty Alpha Ethan finally cried like a helpless child in front of the woman he had treated like dirt. I am sorry. I am sorry. Suddenly, the hurried click of high heels came from the door. Ethan, why did you run all the way here? Isabella's voice, weak but laced with urgency, rang out. Our baby has been crying. He wants you to hold him. Ugh, it smells terrible in here. Isabella was pushed in on a wheelchair by a nurse. When she saw the corpse on the bed, a flash of disgust crossed her eyes, quickly masked by surprise. Oh my God, did Sister Serafina really have an accident? I thought she was just throwing a tantrum. Ethan's body went rigid. He slowly raised his head. The eyes that had always looked at Isabella with tenderness were now a dead, cold pool, with a storm capable of destroying everything brewing in their depths. He stood up, his movements stiff as a puppet, but the killing intent radiating from him dropped the room's temperature to freezing. Throwing a tantrum? Ethan's voice was low and raspy, every word sounding like it had crawled out of hell. You think this was her throwing a tantrum too? He pointed to the charred wound on Serafina's arm, inflicted by Chloe, caused for the sake of Isabella's peaceful delivery. Isabella went pale, frightened by his gaze, and shrank back instinctively. Ethan, don't look at me like that. I know you are sad, but this isn't my fault, the oracle's prophecy said. F.A. number K, the prophecy. Ethan walked toward Isabella step by step. The intense pressure made the nurse pushing the wheelchair scream and flee. For that prophecy, I locked her in a cage. For that prophecy, I ignored her cries for help. For that prophecy, I killed my mate and my firstborn son. Ethan stopped in front of Isabella, looking down at her. There was no love left in his eyes, only endless regret and impending madness. In the deadly silence of the morgue, the air seemed to freeze into ice. Facing Ethan's gaze that threatened to swallow everything, Isabella finally felt fear. She glanced at the lifeless Serafina on the iron bed, then at Ethan's trembling hand resting on his holster. Her voice turned shrill. "Ethan, are you crazy? I am Isabella. I am your brother's mate. This was just an accident, and it was her own weak constitution. How can you blame me?" She tried to squeeze out a few tears, just like she had countless times before. "Besides, our baby is the future Alpha. You should be happy." "Happy?" Ethan let out a chilling, low laugh. He suddenly stepped forward, grabbed the armrests of Isabella's wheelchair, and slammed her and the chair violently into the corner. "Look at her," Ethan roared, pointing at Serafina's pale corpse. "That weak woman was tortured by silver poison in a silver cage for hours without any painkillers. And you," his gaze scraped over Isabella's exquisite makeup and pain, "free face like a blade. You scream if you get a paper cut, yet you drank nectar while giving birth, while Serafina was bleeding out. What were you doing? You were showing off to me that you could dance." Isabella's face was ashen, her lips trembling as she tried to defend herself. That was to make you not worry." "Shut up," Ethan bellowed. Just then, the beta, Mason, who had been standing silently at the door, walked in. He held a tablet, his face gray as if he were about to pronounce a death sentence. "Alpha," Mason's voice was hoarse. "I think you need to see this. It is the surveillance footage from the basement. I feel that since the Luna is gone, there are truths you must know." Ethan turned his head stiffly. Mason hit play and turned the volume to the maximum. On the screen in the dim basement, Serafina was curled up in the cage, covered in blood. "Chloe, please. Get me out of here. The baby is coming." Her voice was weak but filled with desperate pleading. Then Chloe appeared on screen. Not only did she not help, she viciously mocked her, even kicking the cage. Then came the heartbreaking scene, Chloe slicing Serafina's arm with the silver dagger. "This is all your fault. Let's see how you like the taste of real silver." Ethan's pupils contracted violently. His heart felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. He watched himself on the screen, or rather, the version of himself on the other end of Chloe's mind. Link coldly cut the connection. But that wasn't the fatal blow. Mason's trembling finger slid to the latter part of the video. It was after Ethan had completely cut the link. Serafina lay alone in a pool of blood, convulsing as the silver poison took hold. She didn't curse him anymore. She didn't resent him. In the video, she struggled to place her hand on her flat stomach. It was the final moment of her life. "I am sorry." Her whisper was so faint it was barely audible. "Baby, I am sorry if you have a next life. I hope you are born into a home where Daddy loves Mommy." "Ethan, I really only ever loved you." The sentence went straight through Ethan's skull like a bullet. No. Ethan's knees gave way, and he fell heavily onto the hard floor. He had always thought she was in it for the money, for the status. He had used, she is a manipulative woman, to numb himself, to rationalize his cruelty. But now, the truth was laid bare. While he had locked her in a cage for a so-called heir, she used her last breath to pray for her child to have a father who loved its mother, even though that father had just sentenced her to death. "What have I done?" Ethan clutched his head, letting out a beast-like whimper of agony. "What have I done?" Isabella, seeing the surveillance video, went instantly pale. She knew she was finished. The carefully cultivated image of the frail victim had completely crumbled. "Take her away." Ethan didn't look up, his voice cold as hell itself. "Throw Isabella in the dungeon. Arrest Chloe. I will personally, piece by piece, return the pain they inflicted on Serafina, 10 times, 100 times over." "Ethan, you can't do this." "I am the prophet's," Isabella screamed as she was dragged out by 2 guards. The morgue finally fell silent. Only Ethan remained, with the dead Serafina. Ethan crawled to the bed, trembling as he held Serafina's cold hand, the one burned by silver. He buried his face in her palm, his hot tears unable to warm her even a fraction. "Serafina, please, don't die. Just wake up, and I'll do anything you want. I'll give the alpha position to your child. I'll sentence Isabella to death. I'll even give you my life. Please, open your eyes." However, the only response was deathly silence. After an unknown amount of time, the old doctor who had remained silent sighed, stepped forward, and gently patted Ethan's shoulder. "Alpha, please accept my condolences. The Luna's body is beginning to stiffen. We need to process her. Please step out and let her go with dignity." Ethan jerked his head up, eyes blood red. "I am not leaving. She is my mate. She isn't going anywhere but by my side." Mason stepped forward, then forcibly gripping Ethan's arm, his eyes holding a complex emotion. "Alpha, acting like this now will only disturb the Luna's peace. You have more important things to do. You must clear her name and erect a monument for the deceased child. Do you want your enemies to see you broken?" The words stung Ethan. He gritted his teeth, taking one last deep look at Serafina's pale face, as if to carve her appearance into the depths of his soul. "I'll be back," he whispered hoarsely. "After I deal with those scum, I will come back to be with you forever." Ethan stumbled as he turned away, his back looking as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. As the heavy iron door slammed shut with a bang, the morgue fell silent once more, sure that Ethan's footsteps had faded away. The old doctor, who had kept his head bowed, suddenly straightened his back. The look of grief vanished from his face, replaced by determination and tension. "Is he gone?" the doctor asked in a low voice. Mason, the deputy whom Ethan had raged at, the one who found Serafina in the basement, had not left. He leaned against the door listening for a moment, then turned around and nodded firmly. "Gone," he went to the dungeon. "He won't be back until he has vented his rage." The doctor quickly turned and pulled a syringe glowing with a faint blue light from his empty sleeve. This was no ordinary medicine, but the antidote to the werewolf taboo, feign death drug. An ancient, incredibly rare elixir capable of pulling a soul back from the brink of hell. "Hurry, there isn't much time," Mason urged, anxiety in his voice. The doctor didn't hesitate to plunge the needle into Serafina's heart. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The body that had been pronounced dead suddenly saw a finger twitch. Immediately after, an extremely faint gasp, like a drowning person surfacing, escaped Serafina's gray-purple lips. "Ha," although weak. It was the sound of life. The doctor quickly removed the needle and pressed a stethoscope to her chest. Moments later, he let out a long breath, his forehead covered in cold sweat. "Heartbeat restored. It is very weak, but she survived. It is a miracle. The silver poisoning was so deep, yet she managed to hang on to a breath." Mason looked at the woman on the bed who had escaped death, his eyes reddening. "It is not a miracle," Mason whispered, his tone holding deep disappointment in his alpha. "It is because she wants to live. She hates him, and that hatred is sustaining her." He looked at the tiny bundle of the infant beside her, pronounced, "Dead." "And the child?" Mason asked. The doctor shook his head, a trace of pain in his eyes. "The baby is too small. The silver poison went too deep. I could only temporarily seal his heart meridians. But whether he survives depends on fate, and whether we can get him to that place in time. Then send them away." Mason gritted his teeth, pulling a set of car keys from his pocket and handing them to the doctor. "There is an unmarked van at the back door. Take them away, go to the border, go somewhere where no one knows Ethan." The doctor took the keys, looking at Mason with concern. "What about you, if Ethan finds the bodies missing?" "I'll handle it." Mason adjusted his collar, a look of resolve flashing in his eyes. "I'll set fire to the morgue. I'll tell him it was an electrical fire caused by old wiring, and not even ashes remain." That way, he will truly have nothing. The doctor looked at him deeply. You are betraying your alpha. No. Mason looked out the window at the dark night, in the direction Ethan had driven off like a madman. I am making amends as a human being. He doesn't deserve her. He doesn't deserve her in this lifetime. 10 minutes later, in the back alley of the PAC clinic, a battered van slipped silently into the night. Inside lay the unconscious Serafina and the baby hovering between life and death. On the other side of the clinic, a raging fire suddenly soared into the sky, swallowing the morgue and swallowing Ethan's last hope. When Ethan, hands covered in blood, rushed out of the interrogation room upon hearing the alarm, all he saw was the sky filled with firelight. He tried to rush into the sea of fire like a madman, but was held back by countless hands. Serafina, the wretched roar resonated through the clouds, carrying endless despair and regret. He thought he had simply lost his mate, but he didn't know that what he had truly lost was a family that could have been happy and blissful, and his last chance at redemption. 5 years after Serafina's death, winter in the Northern Territories was exceptionally long, but in the top floor office of a rising business empire named Silver Moon, the fire was roaring. Serafina stood before the floor, to ceiling window swirling a glass of red wine. The weak woman covered in blood and begging in a basement was gone. In her place was a queen, with eyes sharp as knives, dressed in a perfectly tailored haute couture suit. The silver burn scar on her arm remained, but she hadn't removed it. She had tattooed it into a coiling bramble, a constant reminder of the despair of that night. Mommy. A tender but energetic voice broke the silence. A little boy stumbled in and threw himself into her arms. He had soft black hair and amber eyes just like Serafina's, but his brow inevitably carried the shadow of that man. This was Noah, the child all the doctors said absolutely would not survive. 5 years ago, the doctor and Mason had driven her through the night to a hidden PAC in the north. For a full year, Serafina fought the Grim Reaper. The silver poison had seeped into her marrow to save Noah. She endured the agony of blood transfusions. She survived carrying her hatred. Slow down, Noah. Serafina crouched, gently wiping the sweat from her son's forehead. I thought I told you to practice boxing with Uncle Mason? Uncle Mason said, I improved too fast, so today's lesson ended early. Noah puffed out his small chest proudly. Mommy, aren't I strong when I grow up? I am going to protect you and never let anyone put you in a cage. Hearing the word cage, Serafina's eyes darkened for a moment, but were immediately flooded with endless tenderness. Yes, no one can ever cage us again. She kissed her son's forehead, then stood up to look at Mason, who had just walked in. Mason was no longer the submissive deputy. He was now Serafina's most capable right-hand man. Director Serafina. Mason handed over a file, his tone serious. The time has come. Ethan's family enterprise, Nightfall Group, has completely severed its capital chain due to Isabella's years of squandering and poor decision-making. They are seeking an acquisition. Serafina took the file, the corner of her mouth curving into a cold arc. Isabella, that idiot, she knows nothing but buying luxury goods and playing the victim. Ethan destroyed his own PAC for a woman like that. She snapped the folder shut. Prepare the private jet, we're going south. It is time to go pay respects to my late husband. In the cemetery of the south, a bleak rain fell steadily. The once spirited Alpha Ethan was now unshaven, his eyes sunken, wearing a crumpled trench coat and holding a bottle of strong liquor. He knelt before a tombstone. There was no photo on the stone, only the engraving, Tomb of my beloved Serafina and my son. For the past 5 years, he had lived like a walking corpse. Although he had locked Isabella in the dungeon after the fire and tortured her until she wished for death, it hadn't alleviated his pain by even a fraction. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Serafina's final plea for help and saw the blood-stained silver dagger. Serafina. Ethan stroked the cold stone, his voice hoarse. I've come to see you again. Isabella went crazy yesterday. She kept screaming about ghosts in the dungeon. but I know that is your revenge. If only you could come back, even as a vengeful spirit to take my life, I would be willing." Just then, the roar of engines came from outside the cemetery. Several black luxury cars pulled up to the curb. The doors opened, and 2 rows of bodyguards in black suits quickly opened black umbrellas, forming a path. Ethan turned his head sluggishly. Who would disturb him on a day like this? He saw a tall woman in a black trench coat and sunglasses step out of a car. She wore stilettos, every step firm and powerful, her aura so imposing it seemed to freeze the surrounding rain. And behind her followed a figure he knew all too well. Mason, the liquor bottle in Ethan's hand, crashed to the ground. Shattering, he thought he was having hallucinations again. The woman walked up to the tombstone and slowly removed her sunglasses, revealing those amber eyes that haunted his dreams, yet were now cold as frost. "Long time no see, Ethan." Seraphina's voice was no longer gentle. It carried the authority of a superior and a bone, chilling coldness. "You built my tomb quite nicely. It is a pity it is empty." Ethan trembled all over. He tried to stand up but fell back to his knees as his legs gave out. He crawled forward wretchedly in the mud, reaching out a shaking hand to touch the hem of her dress. "Seraphina, is it really you? You are not dead. I knew it. I knew it was fake." Ecstasy flooded his heart. He wanted to laugh, but tears flowed first. "Don't touch me." Seraphina stepped back in disgust, her high heels stomping viciously on his outstretched hand. "Ah!" Ethan cried out in pain, but dared not pull his hand back, still staring at her obsessively. "Step on me. As long as you are alive, you can do anything to me. Seraphina, I know I was wrong. I've repented every day for 5 years." "Repented," Seraphina sneered. "Can your repentance turn back time? Can it erase the pain I felt in that silver cage? Can it negate the fact that you sent me to my death for that wretch?" She crouched down, using her cold fingers to lift Ethan's stubbled chin, her eyes void of any love. "Ethan, I didn't die. Not because of your mercy, but because I had loyal friends and an obsession to see you destroyed. From today on, your pack, your company, your status, they belong to me. Consider it the alimony you owe me." The acquisition proceeded incredibly smoothly, or rather, it was a one-sided slaughter. Ethan offered no resistance. When Seraphina walked into the conference room with her legal team, Ethan signed the transfer agreement immediately. He didn't even look at the terms. His eyes were glued to Seraphina, filled with a pathetic eagerness to please. "I've signed it. All the shares, all the territory, it is all yours." Ethan pushed the documents away, his voice humble. "Seraphina, I have nothing now. Can I? Can I stay by your side, even just as a servant or a watchdog?" The once proud alpha was now willing to abandon his dignity just to stay near his mate. Seraphina sat at the head of the table, toying with the pen in her hand, and said indifferently, "A watchdog. You are not worthy. I don't need a dog. What I need is the joy of watching you live in agony." Just then, the conference room door was pushed open. 5 year. Old Noah ran in, bouncing with his little backpack on. "Mommy," Uncle Mason said, "we can go get ice cream now." Ethan was struck by lightning. He stared blankly at the little boy. Those eyes that knows, even the slight frown when he spoke. It was a carbon copy of himself as a child. "This is Thursday. This is..." Ethan pointed a trembling finger at Noah, a choking sound coming from his throat as if he were being strangled. Noah stopped, looking warily at the disheveled stranger, then quickly ran to Seraphina's side, hugging her arm. He bared his teeth at Ethan, letting out a childish wolf growl in warning. "Don't you bully my mommy?" Seraphina patted her son's head, looked cruelly at Ethan, and a smile curled her lips. "Ethan, allow me to introduce you. This is Noah. He is the firstborn son you pronounced, dead in the silver cage, the one you abandoned for Isabella's child. He is alive. He is healthy, smart, and powerful. but he will never call you father." This sentence completely destroyed Ethan's last psychological defense. If Seraphina's hatred caused him pain, the existence of this child was execution by 1,000 cuts. He looked at the child he should have cherished in the palm of his hand, the child who should have inherited everything, now looking at him like an enemy. He remembered that day outside the delivery room, holding Isabella's child and smiling, while his own flesh and blood struggled for survival in a cold morgue. Who grief and regret slammed into his internal organs. Ethan dropped directly to his knees and heaved violently, as if trying to vomit up his very heart and lungs. "Son, my son." He wept, snot and tears running down his face, trying to crawl toward Noah. "I am daddy. I am your daddy." "Stay away from him." Mason blocked the way, kicking Ethan over. Seraphina stood up, took Noah's hand, and looked down at the man on the floor. "Ethan, you are banished from the pack. I won't kill you because death is too cheap for you. I want you to live. I want you to see how well Noah and I live. While you rot slowly in loneliness and poverty, I want you to remember, in the dead of every night, the moment you pushed us away with your own hands. That is your only job for the rest of your life." 10 years later, Seraphina had become the most respected alpha queen on the continent. Under her rule, the pack flourished. She also established a foundation specifically to protect women and pups abused in mate relationships. Noah grew into a handsome, upright young man, incredibly gifted, kind, and just the universally acknowledged heir. Mason remained by their side, protecting them, though he never overstepped. He provided Seraphina and Noah with their most solid support. Although Seraphina never remarried, her life was filled with love and laughter. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the city, a crippled homeless man curled up under an overpass. He was dressed in rags, his hand tightly clutching a photo cut from a newspaper. The photo showed Seraphina and Noah at a celebration, smiling brilliantly. Passers-by avoided him with disgust. "Did you hear? That crazy guy used to be a big shot." Apparently, he became like this because he abused his wife and child. Serves him right. The homeless man ignored the gossip. With dirty hands, he carefully wiped the dust from the photo, his eyes cloudy but obsessed. "Seraphina, Noah, I am sorry," he murmured in a low voice, as if this were his only motivation to keep living. Once he had used a silver cage to imprison the woman who loved him. Now, regret had become an invisible, indestructible cage, imprisoning him in endless darkness, forever, without release. And Seraphina, beneath that vast sky, soared freely,